Welcome to episode 294 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. Joining me, as always, is Donna Grindle, the great and mighty from Garden.
It's going to be one of those days, is it now?
Never know.
Never know.
Never know.
I try to be ready for whatever you make up on the fly there.
You can't be.
I can't.
I'm not even ready for what I make up on the fly.
You're one of those people, you learn what you're going to say when you open your mouth.
Yeah, it's like, what? What did I just say? Cannot be held accountable for what I just did.
You try to grab the words as they fly out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way my whole thought process is. It's just like, you've seen people try to fish in the stream when the salmon are jumping up. I guess it's the salmon that do that.
Salmon or salmon. My dad says salmon.
Yeah. My wife says salmon. Actually, she's got to the point now where she refuses to say the word. She's like, grab that fish out of the refrigerator. I'm like, what kind of fish? I'm not saying it.
And here you go saying it.
Yep.
I'm telling her.
I do. I make fun of her so much that that's the way I say it now, poking fun at her. So yes, the salmon.
Well, there we go. We've
do you
now
remember
established yet again that you're in trouble with your wife.
But here's how I discovered that she says salmon. You remember, I guess it's been a few years ago now, but you remember the guys that would video themselves doing the silly salmon thing?
I've totally missed that.
So it was some people that they called it the silly salmon. They would run like in a public place that had like a fountain or a pond or like anything that had water near people. They would video it, and some guy would like run toward the fountain in front of everybody and dive in the air with his hands down by his side and flop like a fish until he went into the water. And they called it the silly salmon. And it's just, you imagine all these people just around the fountain, throwing their pennies in and hanging out with the family. And all of a sudden this dude out of nowhere just flying through the air, flopping and lands. And he would go running off a boat dock, people standing around, he'd flop it in the air. It's hilarious, dude.
Okay, I'll have to look it up. I'll take your word for it for now.
And the people, and then there were probably more groups that did it than just the ones I watched. But what they would do is, it was as if they were walking along with their friends, and they would just call them out on it. Like you've seen the show where the four guys,
yes, make Impractical Jokers.
Yes,
I love that.
It was kind of like that, but it was just some kids filming stuff, and they'd be walking along talking about something, and then the guy would be like, "You got to do the silly salmon." And he's like, "Ah." And then he would just do it, clothes and all, just run and just fly through the air. It's so funny. But that's how I discovered that she says salmon, because she's telling me about this thing and she keeps saying salmon, salmon, salmon. I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought she was talking about some guy named Salmon. But anyway, yeah. So for those of you who's still here and not watching YouTube videos yet, today's episode we'll be talking about PACS images exposed part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah. So we had a conversation about this a while back,
a year ago.
Yeah, and it is coming back around.
Well, I'm reading it and I'm like, is this the same from last? Wait a minute. So, sometimes when we say, hey, you should go look for this because it could be happening to you, and then a year later, people are announcing, we found out this was happening to us just a couple months ago. I have to talk about it.
He's like, clearly not listening to the podcast.
I need some therapy after I see that kind of stuff.
Do you want to send them like a little podcast welcome package? We should create one. This could have helped you.
Yeah. So definitely going to review what we said a year ago versus what's coming out now, which just says that what we said a year ago apparently is still going on.
Yeah. This reminds me of the article you sent that I forget the exact title, but basically it was, how to avoid all the problems with HIPAA access rights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you already have that in the thing, don't you?
Oh no, I didn't put it in there.
You just put it in there.
It was like, here's your help is here. You can solve all your HIPAA problems. And then you go and it basically says, do HIPAA.
Do what you're supposed to do if you want to avoid the problems.
Yeah. These are the things you're supposed to be doing. You should be doing them. There's your help.
Yeah. It's funny because when you read the headline, it's almost like there's a way around it. Like there's a back door that we can access that we don't have to do these things.
I'm going to get a checklist, that ever evasive checklist.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Not going to happen.
Yes.
All right. So we'll dive into that. All right. So we need to mention the HIPAA Bootcamp virtual edition, August. What would that be considered? The fall edition, I guess.
Yeah.
It always confused me because my birthday's in August, and of course it's 150 degrees, and people be like, "It's the fall," because we'd sign up for like fall classes.
Yeah, there's fall weather, and then there's fall calendar. That's it. That's
like it's not fall. I'm burning up. But anyway, the HIPAA Bootcamp Virtual Edition will be the second and final one of 2021. Will be August 17, 18, 19. The cart is now open.
It will be when this is.
Yeah, and as always, seating is extremely limited because we do a lot of one-on-one help and discussion.
Yes.
So if you want to know more about that, go to thehipabootcamp.com or more.
Yay.
All right. So, and Donna has a great idea for this week. So in addition to our normal ask, which is leave us a review, she says it's a great idea to share. Share the podcast with one person this week.
There you go.
Come on, be a super spreader.
Okay, that's a good one.
And thanks as always to our donors. And now it's time to get into the HIPAA
Say what
segment. So after last week, we finalized the podcast recording. Go to our email, and it's like, are you serious? OCR waited till after the podcast recording to release the Sweet 16. Don't they know you have to do this on Friday morning so that we can get it into the show? But Severino's not there anymore.
Close.
Yeah, Roger didn't pass that memo along, I guess, but that's when it needs to happen. So anyway, OCR settles the 16th investigation for HIPAA Right of Access Initiative.
Oh yeah, 16. Mm-hmm. So pay attention. It's time. I've never seen them do that. All the years of tracking it, to have 16 in a short period of time, all for the same reason. And, it's time to pay attention, people.
Mm-hmm.
McFly. That's what we're saying. So this one is Sharp Healthcare. It's a Sharp Reese Daily Medical. Anyway, Sharp Healthcare. And they've agreed to take corrective actions, 2-year plan, and pay $70,000 because, so what had happened was, shout out to my friend Brian for that one. June 2019, OCR gets a complaint. Now, this is shortly after they've announced their enforcement initiative, I'd like to point out. And they get a complaint from a patient that the timely filing wasn't, timely response wasn't happening. So OCR provided technical assistance on the HIPAA right of access requirements. Mm. If you get one of those calls, you don't just say, okay, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to tell me what HIPAA says all by yourself. I love the call. Bye-bye.
HIPAA, schmippa.
Well, I think a lot of times maybe they're like, oh, I know we're doing that. And they don't even go look. But I can assure you, if you've gotten the call, you better dig deep and look into the problems. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I always think this is so funny because as IT, we're always telling people The IRS isn't calling you. The FBI isn't calling you. Microsoft isn't calling you. All these things are scams. But then it's like, but OCR probably is calling.
Well, you know, they haven't learned to scam like that. I think that one time somebody started mailing something that
Yeah.
looked like it came from them, and we should look into those people.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, certainly if you're getting a call and somebody says they're from OCR, I would pay it some attention. Now, if they're asking for something crazy like, we're from OCR and we need you to go out and buy a bunch of Amazon cards to pay your fine.
Not so much.
Or I need your bank information or something like that. Yeah, you might want to question it.
And in today's world, don't think that couldn't happen.
Mm-mm.
You know, they do it all.
Yep.
So OCR will not ask you to immediately stroke a check. These things can go on for a period of time, clearly because this started in June 2019. And then they got OCR got another complaint in August 2019. A second complaint still hadn't happened. So they start an investigation. They say, show me your records and tell me about this. And, you know, then they go down that rabbit hole since August 2019. And they just announced in February 2021, which is why you know they will never ask you to stroke a check right now.
Mm-hmm.
August 2021, they finally have a resolution to this. And by the way, because of OCR's investigation, the patient finally got what they were asking for in the format to the place that they were asking for it, which is what was supposed to happen within 30 days. Which is why we're talking about them in the news, paying $70,000. And now OCR will be monitoring their program to make sure that they did it. And this is not what you're supposed to be doing. And so the OCR director quote, which you give a stat, Robin Sue, we got.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think she's Southern, which is, you know, if there's a Southern name, that's a Southern name. Come on. Right. Yeah. You know, we like to run them all together, but I don't even think she's Southern. But the last part, Frobozy, we don't know. We haven't heard it our own ears.
Yeah. And you have tried to find the correct pronunciation. And
yeah, I searched for pronunciation, found two different ones.
Yeah. So we don't know yet. We're hoping that we're going to hear her name pronounced somewhere else where maybe
well,
she's
I prefer to hear her pronounce it.
Yeah.
Because I found two different ones.
Yeah. Well, that's what
I
I'm
don't
saying
trust
is
anybody.
I hope she's going to be speaking at a conference or something and we can, you know, get that correct.
HIPAA Summit coming up. You know, I'm there.
Otherwise, I'll just hit her up on like LinkedIn or something like, how do you say your name? Because I'm tired of butchering it on the podcast. By the way, listen. I may do that.
Well, maybe that got passed down, but the other stuff didn't. So
maybe that's the case too.
So, you know, she hadn't gotten into the quotes that we eventually hear from the directors. You know, this is, let me just get something out there. But I got the quote in here somewhere. Hit us with the quote, David.
So, quote, patients are entitled to timely access to their medical records. OCR created the Right of Access Initiative to enforce and support this critical right. Ba-bam.
Ba-bam.
Yeah, I mean, didn't say ba-bam, but I did.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. This is what they're trying to do. If you aren't paying attention to this, I don't know what else we can do, because clearly, you know, we're doing our part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're telling people, and that's why we need you to share it with one person. Maybe it'll be the person that needs to know.
That sounds like an information sharing initiative.
I think it does.
Where have I heard that before?
You know, it's one of those things that are in all of the different cybersecurity frameworks that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, it's important today to be part of an information sharing environment somewhere, so that you hear about these problems I don't know, like PACS images being exposed in time to do something about them as soon as possible or potentially prevent them.
Mm-hmm.
They call that information sharing organization, so on and so forth. The problem is a lot of those things are cybersecurity things. They come as CVE, blah, 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 blah.
That's true.
Or the really high end ones cost you a bunch of money to be part of to, get the best information.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people either say, look, I don't even understand that. I can't afford that. So, we're working on some ideas up in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big part of the 405D stuff we're working on too. It's in the technical guides there. So Carden and Help Me with HIPAA and all the different conglomerations that David tells us every week, different companies. So we're working on some ideas here, but in the interim, until we come up with some solution, the podcast is still going to be the information sharing organization you can count on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have told you for a long time that it is a good part of your training program.
Huh.
We are now telling you it is also a good part of your information sharing program.
That's right. It's another thing for you to document that, you know what? I'm trying to stay on top of cybersecurity concerns.
Mm-hmm.
At least you're trying. We're not an organization built for this. But clearly, if the people at the Sutter Buttes, it's not what David wants to call it, Sutter Buttes Imaging Medical Group in Yuba City, California, are not listening to us, or at least whoever handles IT for them is not listening to us.
Unfortunately.
And their announcement, it says, I see the headline in the thing, I see the big PACS. It just came out February 17th. Okay. PACS flaws put data at risk for 18 months. California Medical Imaging Group describes data exposure. I said, that sounds familiar. 18 months? Wait a minute. Quick search of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast for PACS. And it pops up that, yes, we've discussed it many, many times, but specifically in February 2020, we had a podcast came out, February 2020. We're a year past that now.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we were talking about an article in ProPublica. That's what it is. Where, and I love how this goes. So an article in ProPublica is talking about an exposure of PACS images discovered by a German research firm that shows hundreds of thousands, millions of images, literally millions of images exposed in the United States. Yeah. And that article, now let's get our time frames, came out in September 2019.
Okay.
And they started telling people prior to that in July. They were telling people. ProPublica published it in September. We watched over it a little while to see if there was going to be any change in information. And then we recorded something about it probably end of January, because we've got year end and we had things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean we can jump on it. We're trying now that we're going to do more information sharing, but we still got it out there. In February, we talked about it. February. At that time, it was more than 5 million patients. It's what they thought they had. By the time it was said and done,
it always gets bigger.
I know it's always bigger than what you first hear. By the time it was said and done, it was like, they showed more than 5 million in some states all by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they published a really cool, very helpful map of the United States showing us what was exposed, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was exposed included on this map, and it showed you like how many images. And at the time, we know the Southeast. We always have to look, and particularly Georgia and Florida. and and both of them had like little caution symbols because there were greater than 1 million,
Oh,
right?
goodness.
Greater than 1 million in those two states alone. And California, where Yuba City, California, I will assume is, had two of those little caution signs. So that meant more than 10 million.
Ooh.
So if I had looked and I was, say, I don't know, an imaging company in California, I would have certainly said, let me look into this.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently nobody is advising the folks at Sutter Buttes because it learned, I love it, just so calm. They recently disclosed in December 2020 that it learned the PACS system had been vulnerable to hacking from July 2019 to December 2020.
Mm.
Wait, what? The practice administrator told Security Media Group, where I first saw the article that made me go, what? The vulnerabilities left accessible names of about 100,000 patients on a work list.
Okay. A single work list?
That's just what it says.
Okay.
About 100,000 patients. Still, 100,000 patients.
Yeah.
Not one or two, 100,000. And then it says the German security firm Greenbone Networks discovered the flaws while it was conducting its own research, the administrator says. And I went, that's where I remember it from. Sure enough, it is that's the same flaw. So yeah, and the administrator of the practice is laying it all out like this is brand new news because it was to the administrator.
Yeah, I was going to say for them it was.
It was brand new news. But here's the part that really got where, you know, but at this point I'm reading the article kind of like OMG and all kinds of other things that we want to keep our clean rating. So I'm not going to say them. It's David's, ironically, I'm the one that talks like the proverbial sailor.
Yeah, in your TLAs.
Yeah. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, you know, I gotta have my stuff. Yeah.
Yes,
But
I am the innocent one.
no. You just have one or two things that keep you out of trouble. At least with me, they can say whatever Aunt Donna says, you cannot repeat. That's it. So, but the way they found out was not that somebody stumbled on the article, not that somebody had done a scan and found these things open. None of those things.
How did they hear about it?
Tell me, Donna, tell me.
Just dying to know.
They were alerted by the Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights.
No way. Not a good way to find out.
No. So, first of all, as we mentioned, you don't want to get that call in the first place.
Mm-mm.
And if you do, you better take action. So clearly they did. They said, what? Excuse me?
Yeah. Didn't OCR one of them TLAs? You know, you think I joke about it, honestly, but I sent out, I guess it's been a couple of years ago now, I had OCR come to Charlotte and do a little one-day conference, and I sent out this flyer that they created, and I sent it out to a whole bunch of healthcare organizations in the area. And I had more than a couple send back an email and said, what is OCR? And I was like, are you kidding me?
This is why
a healthcare organization doesn't know who OCR is? That's scary.
That tells you how serious they are about that HIPAA program.
No, we got HIPAA down. Who's OCR?
Well, that's also the event where somebody got mad because they came to get their HIPAA training for the year.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, they,
whole different story. I think we covered it, but anyway,
yeah.
so imagine it, and I don't know this group, but imagine a group that gets called and somebody's like, I'm from OCR. They don't even know who OCR is.
I know.
They're like, okay, whatever you say.
I'm
But
sure
anyway,
it's. I'm from the Department of Health and Human Services, Office for Civil Rights.
mhm,
Uh, but at any rate, they did get the call. They did take action. Clearly, that's why we're hearing about it now. And good news, good news. According to the article, they said they quote hired IT consultants to help bolster SBI's security controls.
okay, which if I'm reading between the lines correctly, probably means that they had not previously hired IT to bolster security controls.
Well, and we've talked before about the difference between IT help desk and cybersecurity.
Mm,
And there's
mhm.
companies you hire that do IT help desk, but they don't do cybersecurity. And many of them don't know that they don't do cybersecurity. They think they do.
It's becoming a bad problem in our
Yeah.
sector, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yes. It that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But so the question I had obviously is what did they not have anybody? What HIPAA assessments were they doing? Because these things had ports open and all kinds of other stuff. And there's a lot of questions actually. So we don't have to go through them because it, is somebody taking care of it, or did they only find out once they were screwed? That's the bottom line. That's what I want to know.
Mhm.
Did nobody was doing anything? And my wonder is if OCR had to advise them of this, I'm going to lean towards an investigation, even before the greater than 500 breach.
Mhm. Well, we talk about this too, and I wonder if this plays into it. But we talk about how even when you hire IT, typically they're not coming in and managing medical devices.
Yep, they're
So,
not even looking at them.
right. So it is possible that they had an IT consultant or IT company or MSP or whatever, but this just never got looked at because again, it's not typical that that's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen unless they specifically ask for it. Most IT companies are going to say that's not something that we do.
Well, and the vendors will tell them that they're not allowed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one of our big problems. And we had a long discussion about PACS and how it works and the DICOMs and the history of their notoriously not secure technology there. And there's more to it than just what we're talking about. There's a lot of technology issues with just PACS systems. So, we went well down that path in the article in our conversation last February. Um, it's important that we start to get people to change, we'll
Mm-hmm.
say. And at the time, we covered a letter had been sent by Senator Mark Warner, sent a letter to Severino, the then director of OCR, saying, what up? Because I talked to some of these people and they told me, and I remember at the time we were both like, because apparently they told the senator that they had just passed a OCR HIPAA audit and were told they were in compliance with HIPAA. First of all, OCR doesn't tell you that. I'm just saying. And I wonder what this audit was. I mean, that what was it? A desk audit that they had gotten in 2019. We know they weren't doing desk audits, so they did somebody performed a risk analysis
Mm-hmm.
and they did a scan and ignored everything else. We both know what happened. But I went looking for his letter because his letter had some really good questions. I can't find any answers to it, but we also know that letter came out in, he did it in September It always takes a couple of months. We know what happened. It was right before the beginning of 2020. We'll just leave it at that. We're just going to call 2020 the pit of I don't know.
Probably happened to the same thing that happened to a lot of my emails that are in the other folder that never got read. They just got deleted.
So we know, number one, these images are still exposed out there. We also know, I mean, there's literally thousands of providers. And when you find the images, you have to figure out what provider it is, track it down, do all this stuff. And OCR is not that, they don't have a technology arm that tracks data breaches for you.
Mhm.
They're not funded for that.
Right.
You know, they let you know if they find this stuff, it's because somebody else is doing that work and giving it to them. That's not their job. Their job is to go, you need to fix this because we got a complaint,
Mhm.
or show me the money. And the fact that they're telling them, that means somebody somewhere has tracked it down.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
And,
all of them somebody's looking at.
and the thing about it is, if you have this technology in your business and you're not paying attention, I can tell you that the criminals absolutely are paying attention.
Yeah.
You know, they're out there looking for these announcements to know that, guess what? That's an easy way in.
Mm-hmm. If those are exposed, how can I use that as a beachhead
Mm-hmm.
to get to other things? You know, and people are like, well, it's just an image and a name. No, you know, who knows what's on that image and what
Mm-hmm.
I can do with it. And at one time, there was a known issue with hacking those images to steal x-rays of lungs that were clear, because to get a passport, I think it was in China, you had to show that you didn't have TB or something.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, there's a lot of reasons people get these things and do things with them.
Well,
But yeah, to
you
get in.
mentioned the whole, it's only a name and an image. You cannot assume that your staff fully understands the 18 identifiers of PHI.
Yeah.
Because I recently had a conversation with someone, and I know that they're taking a lot of steps in the right direction as far as their compliance program. This guy says to me, we're not sharing PHI, it's just a name and address. And I'm just, I'm literally slapping myself in the forehead. It's like, that is PHI. But his comment was basically that he thought it was just health information,
Yeah.
just healthcare information. That's it.
Well, we've had people before in the boot camp that were surprised to learn the same thing, because they said the stuff that's in the EHR is PHI. No,
No, that's just it. And the problem is when you look at step one, which is your assessment, but how do you know what to protect if you don't know what to protect?
exactly.
You don't know where it is because you don't even know what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at something completely different. So you have to have a basic understanding of what constitutes PHI or EPHI. You have to have that first before you know what you're looking for and how to protect it. So I did. I was like, are you kidding me? Did you just say
The name and address is not PHI?
Yeah.
Okay. But the name of the practice that and I mean, there's so many things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So many
and it's like I tell people all the time, when you look at the 18 identifiers, scroll down to the 18th one.
Yeah. I always love to point that one out too.
Yeah. Just scroll down to there and then we'll just stop there having a discussion.
There you go. And people don't get the things like how easy it is to identify somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I always have them go, I think it's MIT researchers have done this, and they've done a couple of passes, and I seriously doubt it's gotten better. In fact, I think it's gotten worse on this little test that they do.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes voter rolls, which are freely available. You can get them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Voter roll. And it takes a supposedly de-identified or limited data set with medical records in it. And it says, okay, the only thing that's in this file that could identify somebody is, I think it was the zip code, date of birth, and sex.
Oh, that's plenty.
Mm-hmm. They just took the voter rolls, and or no, I think it may have only been age, date of birth. Anyway, year of birth, something like very, what most people would say, not, I couldn't, that can't be a problem.
Yeah.
And then they took the voter rolls, and you enter in, you can go to this website, and I'll find it and put it on the show notes, but you can go to this website and you enter in your zip code, your date of birth, and your sex or your gender. And it will show you how many people have that date of birth and that gender, but it'll also show you how many were born in that year in that zip code. And so you can see how quickly it narrows down to like 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
And sorry, if it's less than 50, it's easy to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I do this a lot of times when people, I'm looking for people online. Maybe I just have their name and that's it. I'm sure you've done this. You go to LinkedIn or Facebook, and how many times do you find somebody just based off their name or
their name and a state?
Yeah. Or where they work and their title. I don't even need their name.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. You give me 2 points of information, I can definitely find
Sometimes them. You can even, use some of those services and make a few clicks, and you're looking at a satellite view of their house.
This is
true. It's not I mean, that's totally doable. I'm not going to tell you about things that happen. It's just know that someone close to me was going through a divorce, and you can use those tools to prove some stuff. That's all I'm saying.
I bet you can. It's like, have you ever seen the images? It's like the Google car that rides around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's a site where it's like picks up all these images of crazy stuff happening as it drives by.
I know. I love those. And you don't want to be on that site, because now you're going to see even more of you.
Yeah.
So know that idea that, this is just images, so nobody needed to be out there dealing with it. It's just images and patient names. No. It is that easy. And know that, again, how we talk about that, we know there's a lot of investigations going on. This is sure to be it. There's an investigation going on here. Seriously. And I'm sure that there may be thousands of others based on, at least 100 or so, maybe. Who knows? Because if somebody's gone out there and figured them out and found them for them so that they are able to then one by one go through and prove it, that's just not the way you want to learn that you have a data breach. So share.
Don't share PHI.
No.
Share.
Yeah, you're right. We got to get information. Oh, we've got to work that out. Yeah. So we want you to share about vulnerabilities. We want to share about the fact that information is actively out there and vulnerable, and they can't find everybody to get them to shut it down. And if you don't know who OCR is, and all you're having is an IT company scan your network, and they're not even talking about your medical devices, I mean, come on.
Yeah. At the very least, ask the questions.
I know people are, they can't believe when we're starting to say, well, tell me how many medical devices you have. What do you mean medical devices?
Yeah. Because for us, for my business, I mean, we don't we don't typically deal directly with the medical device, but the key is, number one, I know that. And number two, my client knows that.
You make sure.
And that's, that's really the best you can hope for, is that your IT company is at the least saying that's not something we handle, or you understand to ask that, because the worst thing is to assume.
Because we know about that. But the thing is that even if you know that, that doesn't mean that then you do nothing about it. You've got to make sure you don't assume that the vendor's handling it, because clearly they're not.
We're going back to the same person that had the conversation with about the PHI. Because once he realized that PHI, the name and address constituted part PHI, the next question I asked him was, where's the data stored? And he's like, well, I assume it's stored. I was like, no, we do not assume that. We must know. We must know where it is. Anyway, that was a really fun conversation in many areas, but
I'm sure it was a guy that said, I've been in healthcare for X number of years. Forever. I know everything about HIPAA.
Forever. He's got a C, at the beginning of his title, and
yeah.
I just need this done.
Just get this done.
Yeah, let's just get this done. We've been talking for 5 minutes. Why hasn't this been implemented?
I don't care about security.
Yeah, security is hindering my performance.
So
it's also protecting your booty. It's protecting your boots.
So this article's giving us, oh God. We got to close this thing up now. He's off the edge. So in this one article, we have learned several things. One is, just because information is out there about vulnerabilities, people aren't doing anything about it. Hello, Equifax. Let's leave it at that. That was the same scenario. This one, huge. It's not just a vulnerability. It's actually exposed information. Things are exposed.
Yes.
And that kind of exposure needs to be dealt with immediately. So we've got things that are exposed. We've got people not getting the information they need, or not understanding when they do get it. And it's medical devices where people are assuming, and guess what? What are the top 5 in 405D's top 5 list of threats 5. And vulnerabilities?
Yeah,
number 5, medical devices. And the need to share information with people that can do something about it, and allow you to have access to the information in some sort of manner that helps non-technical people understand what's going on. Because all the sharing that's going on is cybersecurity to technical to, the MITRE attacks are awesome. If you ever go through and read some of those, the MITRE, and you read those little spreadsheets, first time I was a little intimidated, and then I finally go back in there and I spent, it's so cool to go in there, but you got to be a technical person. But they'll then publish, this follows this attack method and blah, blah, blah. And it's CVE, yet people got nothing. So share, learn, and don't ignore your medical devices, please. And if it's a PACS system, go right now, right this minute, and assume that it's hacked and everything's leaking out of it.
Ooh. Yep. So there's your second warning.
Maybe 3rd, 4th, or 5th. I don't know, but you don't want to learn it from OCR. That's for sure.
Yep, that's true.
Indeed.
Right. So that is our show for today, folks. So remember to follow us and share us out. If you're gonna share anything, you might as well share us. Don't share your PHI. Expose us. Don't expose yourself.
Don't expose germs. Yeah, there you go.
Exposing yourself to the public, sending your stuff out there.
Okay. We're at the end. Make it end. Make it stop.
Hey, Carla. So anyway, thanks for helping us, and make sure you check out the HIPAAbootcamp.com if you're interested in the August session. Remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.